here. So, greetings and good evening. It's so hot today, I must say. It's like nice to be in London right now, I can't lie, even though the lockdown is kind of locked up or not. So my name's Cheryl Phoenix, as you guys know, and I run the Black Child Agenda. And what I've been doing over the past weeks is a series of videos. So I just got something in my eye. Pre-recorded videos that I can then post out at a later stage. Reason being, I'm sick and tired of mainstream media telling our stories on our behalf about who we are, what we do, what we stand for, and about our achievements and successes, as well as some of the challenges we face with the system as it stands, and then what we can see as solutions moving forward. So we can have a good conversation about what we see as the issues, what our personal journeys have been like, and then we'll look at some of the things that we can consider by way of putting into action or putting out there as solutions. So the only thing I'll say whilst we're filming is if you're not speaking, to put your microphone on mute, because we can pick up all the background, like I can hear the cat in the garden, all the background noise gets picked up. So worst case, I'll actually mute everyone myself. So let's start, as Michelle, you're first on my right-hand side. Let's start with you, like basically who you are and even what you do.
My name's Michelle Lewis. I'm a mother to 8 children. My first child has special educational needs and has faced a lot of failings to do with that. I work for Mahogany Carnival Arts in Harlesden, based in Harlesden.
And then Marilyn.
Me.
Marilyn, your mic, you have to unmute your mic.
Yes. I muted it and then forgot to put it back on. Yes, my name's Marilyn. I currently work as an SEN caseworker in various local authorities, but I've worked with young people in various settings for the last 30 years. So I've worked for the Yacht, I've looked after children, and I think the only one that I haven't really worked, the client group that I haven't worked with is young people with mental health issues. But that crosses over into SEN now. So yeah, I've been a team manager for working with neat young people. So my experience has been quite broad, depending on whatever government agenda there has been over the years. So that's me. Oh yeah, and I play a sound system in the carnival.
Well, we ain't getting no carnival this year, but yeah, no, we'll come to your house then. And Ziggy.
Okay, good evening. I hope you're hearing me.
Yep.
My name is Ziggy Moore, English teacher for the last 13 years. Trained in English. I got into teaching because of the call for black male teachers in the profession. I've worked all over London, north, south, east and west. 5 years ago, I became very disillusioned as it became very clear to me that although they called for these strong black male figures, there wasn't actually a space in the education system for strong black male figures to do exactly what they required to do, which was to educate our children in a way in which they were accustomed to. So from that, I started my own kind of Saturday school, supplementary school, more education. We started with 4 students. Within the first month, we went down to 2. Those 2 went away, and we've slowly built from there. We recently did an online school where we had about 40 children all over the country. So we had, this was for parents, we anticipated parents were going to need that support once schools went on lockdown. So we had students from Manchester, Bristol, Birmingham. We had one student who's in Grenada logging on, which would have been like 4 o'clock in the morning for him. We do English, maths, science, world and African history, and financial intelligence. And yes, that's where we've evolved to now, simply to give our children the opportunity to learn from people who look like them in a way that they understand, and being able to teach them things that they're interested in. Therefore, our attainment, where our results kind of speak for themselves in regards to GCSE attainment. So yeah.
All right, that's good. I'm going to go back, start with you actually, Ziggy,
It feels
with
like
regards to the education.
it feels like you're going to pick on me. I'm getting scared, Cheryl. Sorry.
Only because from what you said leads me straight into what my first question was going to be.
Yes.
And
all
that
right.
is, September's coming now. We had the lockdown from March. We're still allegedly going through it. September's coming. How do you see, from parents that you've spoken to who usually would send their children to a full-time school, have you had parents come back to you with regards to the potential of home educating? Or how do you see with regards to more education in and around the timetable of the school system and, you know, young people?
So you've hit the nail on the head. To be honest, I wasn't brilliantly what would be the best word? I wasn't brilliantly au fait, or I didn't have a great understanding of the homeschooling system. I think coming to one of your sessions maybe about 2 years ago in Tottenham was my introduction. However, after the lockdown, I've had many inquiries about a homeschooling system. We're hopefully going to be, I'm going to support a group in North London to do for primary. I have that meeting on Friday, so that's supporting them to be able to, because there's been such an influx of parents asking about this, and we're going to start our own online, we're going to aim to start our own online school from probably in January. Our biggest issue is the teaching quality. So what I like to do is ensure that our teachers are qualified teachers and understand the mission, as opposed to what a lot of tuition centres do, is they get people in who, they might have a degree in maths, or they might be good in a specific subject, but I specifically ask for teachers in those subjects. So I think that's the only issue we're going to have for the secondary element of our homeschooling. But it's huge demand. I think parents, and including myself, have realised that our children can actually flourish outside of school. And I think something else that's come up is, I use this term a lot, and I'm going to start using it a lot because it was used in regards to the Windrush generation. However, I think it pertains to just us simply being in this country as a hostile environment. Schools are a hostile. Yeah, schools are hostile environments for many of our children. I think this has exposed that to a lot of parents. So an example would be, I had one of the young men in Bristol, academically very strong. His mother, I think, is a deputy head or assistant head. He goes to a good school, no problems. However, after the 8-week course, she said, I've seen a huge change in my child in regards to his confidence, in regards to his understanding of himself. And even though he was, quote unquote, good at school, she now has an understanding of or what it means to be taught and see yourself reflected in a curriculum, being taught by people who look like you, being able to relate to everything that's happening and the importance that has on you as a person and individual. So without ranting, yes, parents are seeing the difference, and we're going to have more parents opting for homeschool, and we're preparing for that.
Brilliant. Marilyn, what do you like, just even off the back of, you're going to have to unmute yourself. I muted everyone's mics. Off the back of what Ziggy said, how do you see, even particularly because I know you specialize in an area of SEN, how have you seen the lockdown with regards to maybe some of your clients, and what do you see happening in September?
Okay, right. So I left a local authority quite soon into the lockdown for various reasons. The demand for assessments is absolutely throughout the country is absolutely huge, and for the local authorities, they're struggling to meet the demand, to meet the 20-week timescales, and also so you've got that demand there. There are a shortage of schools, some of the schools, I was saying to you the other day, I'm not sure are able to meet young people's needs generally, but also I believe that if when it comes to our young people, there are, I have my concerns, especially at secondary level. I don't necessarily think that the schools are able to meet the needs of the young people, whether they be mainstream or private. And trying to what I was seeing, especially in a couple of London boroughs, is that some children haven't been to school for nearly 2 years, which is absolutely horrific. Horrific. I can't understand why a child has just been left to not attend school, and everyone has been okay with it. So I remember many moons ago, I used to work in a couple of special schools where young people weren't going to school. So the idea of long-term online provision has been there for many years. I became aware of it in 2012. So there has been online education for quite some time for young people who are not engaged. And those are young people that clearly have special educational needs, don't necessarily haven't been through the assessment period, but have flourished at home, like you were saying, this gentleman from More Education, that they flourish from receiving online education. So I think when it comes to young people and special educational needs, I think we really do need to be a lot more creative. Mainstream environments don't suit most young people, a very few young people. That's what I've seen. So yeah, I suspect that I'm not in, as I said, I'm not in a local authority at the moment, and just looking at the jobs, the backlog, I can't imagine what the backlog, especially for those who need their EHC plans updated, it's going to be huge. And for Black children with plans, it's going to be quite interesting now what parents who have children with plans do now, because I think they'll come to the realization that actually if they've sourced education elsewhere and the children are doing well, what do they do now?
And don't you think, like, even with that, a lot of the time is when the child can't cope in the school environment, as we said, as opposed to the child not being able to cope with schoolwork? Because it's like there's a lot of mixture. When you see exclusion rates, the crossover between the two, it's like, well, actually, the child behaves like this because he has an underlying need, and the environment that he's in is not conducive to the needs that he has. So this is the result, and now you're kicking him out.
Yeah, and they're quite happy to boot them out. I'll never forget the time that I was in Manchester and I saw this young Black boy. I'd come for his emergency review because it was, you know, as usual, he's being aggressive and this and that, and I thought, well, this sounds familiar. Anyway, he looked at me through the window, and you know that look like, what's this Black woman doing here? Because this is in the middle of nowhere. So I come to the review and he comes in and he says, are you going to help to get me out of here? It sounded like a horror movie. Who does that? What child does that? So I think, and I don't believe that scenario is exclusive to that boy. I believe there are many young people in that situation. So
Michelle, you have a classroom size amount of children, which is amazing. It's like too many of us aren't populating enough. How have your children found being in the lockdown? And with regards to educationally, you know, how are they doing? And you need to unmute. Let me see if I can unmute you, because no one can hear you. Let me unmute you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Yeah, they haven't been coping very well at all. So they're literally in the house most of the time, in a 3-bedroom house, and there's like 5, 6, 7, 8 children in there, and an adult, and they've just been left to their own devices most of the time. The work that they give them online isn't really good enough. I
And
don't
that's
know.
from the
It's like,
school.
sorry.
Is that from the school?
Yeah, the school has required, like my daughter, she's 12, and they require them to go online at certain times to do certain amounts of work. But from what I see, it's not a full education. It's like they literally missed out a whole year, it seems like, even though the lockdown has been for a matter of months. It seems like by the time, because obviously holiday's going to start, then the new term starts in September, and it's like they've missed like a whole year. And I can speak for my own children. Some of them have developed a high lot of stress levels. They're quite depressed. So I said, well, they're going to need a long holiday after this. And it was said that they've had enough holiday. I said, how can lockdown be a holiday? They can't go here, they can't go there, they can't, be children. They're mostly locked up in the house most of the time, and going to a park isn't really doing it. It's not enough. So it's hard. And like I said, I've got some children that struggle with certain things, learning and stuff like that, because my son, the 9-year-old, he actually attended nursery from a very young age. And then that transition from reception from the nursery, after being there so long, he couldn't cope with the structure of how school does things. So he was still in nursery mode, playing as he felt fit, wherever he felt fit. And then they labeled him as a difficult child. And it's literally been an ongoing fight between him and the school ever since. So, it's long standing. And it doesn't seem like they seem to understand.
A lot of the time they don't care, unfortunately.
They don't.
It's easy to label rather than to actually nurture. It's literally fit into this box or get out. And if you don't fit the box, then you can get out, or they make the child's life miserable. Ziggy, what do you feel about, with regards to your online learning? I know you said that you need teachers, and I have a strong feeling myself that by September, a lot of parents are not sending their children back to mainstream education. A lot of parents. So with regards to yourselves as an organization, how do you see that? Because, and then also in a double question I want to ask as well, are you guys also doing the GCSEs? Because the whole hoo-ha that's been around the GCSEs, I've said to parents myself, it's too late. But what's your take on the whole GCSE scandal and the fact that we're going to have an influx in September of home editors? You guys going to be busy.
Okay, let me be clear. I'm quite unapologetic and I'm very direct in how I speak. So I'll give that precursor. What this is exposed, because there's no football, there's no distractions, so everything has been exposed. All of a sudden people have worked out about racism, institutionalized, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. The education system's finished in its current form. It makes no sense. We are operating from a system that was designed 100 years ago for the working class of Britain to be able to functionally work in a factory. Basically, that's the education system, and it makes no sense. So when you're talking about those kind of boxes, I always explain to people, when the education system for children up to 14 was conceived, they didn't see my dad who came over in 1963. They didn't envisage him sitting in a bloody classroom. So let alone his grandchildren 60 years or 50 years later. So it's finished. And everybody's realizing that, and as a community, it's up to us now to seize the day and put the systems in place that we need to. So, as I said, I'm now working reactionary. I've gone from, I thought having 30 students 3 days a week in a room in a community centre in North London was great. I've had to lock that off. We've gone online, and we now have the capacity for 75 students, 5 days a week. We were doing maths and English and science, and I was happy with that. We've had to lock that off. We've had to do maths and English, financial intelligence, and modern African history because of the impact of the psychological impact, as I think, is it Michelle was saying, our children are all over the place. They're all, it's a mess. And as a community, we have to come together in September to be prepared to deal with that. Then you have the children, the GCSE children. That's my daughter. She would have sat at GCSEs this year. And I've had to be very supportive. She's lucky enough to know that her future is not going to be defined by her GCSEs. But most parents have been telling their children that for the past how long? They've been using it as threats. Oh, if you don't get your GCSEs, you're going to be this. And if you don't, and then I think it's like in The Wizard of Oz, when you come to the end and you realize it's a man. It's all foolishness.
Oh gosh.
Because my thing is, okay, put the year 11s aside. What are you going to use and threaten the year 10s to do their work? Because they've just seen a cohort of students who didn't do these GCSEs, and they didn't burst into flames because they didn't sit the exams. It wasn't the end of the world. So a lot of our children who are aware that this education system don't make no sense, but I have to get these GCSEs because I've been told this for how long. I've just seen, so hold on, so I don't have, they don't mean that much. In a click of a finger, they can just say you're not going to do it and give you predicted grades. It's a bit weird. And parents have woken up to it as well. So it's almost this, what's the word? Epiphany. It's educational epiphany, awakening. That's happening, but I don't know how prepared we are as a community to support that. So to give you a bit of history about me, when Michelle was speaking, I was just thinking, your 9-year-old son sounds a lot like Ziggy Moore at 9 years old. They kicked me out of primary school. It weren't working out. It was never going to work out. And they threatened. My dad wanted to send me to boarding school in Jamaica. My mum found a school for me here. It was called John Loughborough. It was an all-black school. They had a primary section and a secondary section. I went from year 5 all the way up to year 11. Okay, it might not have been the greatest school or whatever, many issues. I'm not a Seventh-day Adventist, but it's a Seventh-day Adventist school. But I went to school. I didn't understand a lot of the things that my friends went through. I went to an all-black Saturday summer school and Easter school in Stoke Newington, Claudia Jones organisation. I only grew up around black educators, black children, understanding black history, understanding black culture. I don't know, but we don't have many of those organizations anymore. And the ones that we do have, we don't wholeheartedly support. So in a time of quote unquote crisis now, which we're in an educational crisis, there's 1 and 2 people who can really put the work in. We don't have that powerful, strong network to do what needs to be done, because it's quite obvious. We need a solid a solid homeschooling network for children who need to be removed from school, and we need some solid all black schools. Unfortunately, we don't have that infrastructure.
I agree. Well, the thing is, the
I can't hear you.
Oh, you're chipping in and out, Cheryl.
Oh, really? Can you hear me better now?
Not as good as we could before.
Oh, I don't know what's happening with my phone.
Yeah, that's
back in the room.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
right, I've got my headphones just in case. So I was going to say that towards the end, I'll be able to say to you with regards to the homeschool network is something that we've been working on as well. So I'll give you like some fantastic things. Do I want to do it necessarily as a Black Child Agenda? Not sure. Will we facilitate and be able to get additional resources in because we're the type of organisation we are? Absolutely. And then make sure that that stuff is distributed to everyone. Marilyn, with regards to, like, similarly to what Ziggy's just been saying, with regards to the home ed side of things, and obviously with what you see being someone that specialises in SEN, how do you see parents that have children with special educational needs being able to manage if they did choose to home educate later on down the line? Is there support there for them? Do their EHC plans support that? Like, how do you see things?
Right, I'll tell you what. It was interesting to speak to hear Ziggy and his journey. I took my daughter out of a mainstream school in year 3 and put her into a small Caribbean-based school in Tottenham. It was all Black. There were only about 9 children there. The school no longer exists, but in that time, I saw it wasn't the education, it wasn't the traditional education that made my daughter I think the person that I wanted her to be, which was an all-rounded person who had a good sense of self. And the most powerful thing about that journey was she had a Black male as a teacher. And I think that really set a good foundation for her. Yeah, it was Excelsior. And, you know, for all the you know, the issues that they had, I believe she had a good grounding. Then fast forward, I put her in I was too afraid to put her in a mainstream school. I put her in an independent school. That didn't really go too well either, because it's much about the same issues, but you're just paying for them. So and I look at the home education system now, and I think had there been a good established home education system, I might well have just given up my job and done that. It's a lot more structured now. There's a lot more on offer. So when I see SEN young people in the job that I'm in, I'm seeing young people who are having so many issues, and these are issues that they can well be resolved. There has to be a certain amount of mentoring. There a certain amount within their packages, a certain amount of mentoring to support them to be able to come to terms with some of their conditions. How can you be working with a child, an autistic child, and you're expecting them to learn? And as they grow older and they grow into themselves, no one's actually working with them to come to terms with the condition and how that will how they should be able to maneuver into adulthood, knowing that they've got a condition, and they'll have to manage that in the workplace, around the world. So they're not doing that, but they're quite happy to take the money for this child. Then so there's that, but there's also the whole education. And I think if, you know, young people are struggling to be with other students, they're struggling to communicate, maybe an online experience would be far better for them. They can be best supported. Packages need to be a lot more created, and private institutions which parents think are going to do the trick for their children is not the one. It really isn't the one. And they're spending thousands on children that they want to spend thousands on. And for some of our children, it's over there, mate. It's going to be over there. So, and then they've got a classroom assistant who's not particularly interested in them, but you know, they're there, or they have to share the classroom assistant with 3 other people, when really they should be getting the allocated hours, maybe 15, 20 hours support per week to maneuver them through the system. And like you said, Ziggy, now where they're faced with the fact that they haven't been to school for months, and it doesn't mean anything. But I've always been of the opinion that we need to be offering science from a world point of view. You can learn so much by just, I've got a canal down the road, and there's so much you can learn. There's wildlife over there. There's the canals themselves, which are an amazing thing, because they're like hills, aren't they? So you can teach so much in one day. And then on the other side of the road, there's the countryside meets the A10. So you've got this tension, and how their terms have developed. You can tailor make an education based on what they, what they're interested in, but still put in the math, science and everything. And especially for SEN children who do struggle to understand the world and get the world to understand them, we need to be doing those kind of, providing those kind of packages for them.
Creative learning, thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move the question on slightly. With regards to, obviously we know what's happened in America. I don't know unless you live in outer space. Just quickly, because obviously our children at home, for those parents that watch the news, for those of us that, we haven't been able to escape it. There's been, I was going to say riots, but that's not the right word. There's been protests. There's been all these things going on. Michelle, how have you explained to your children, like, what's happened with regards to what's been taking place in America with the police brutality, the fact that this man was killed? Because there's a lot of things going on, but I'm not sure how many people are actually or have spoken to their children about what their children may have seen on the news or experienced. Has there been a conversation or dialogue with regards to that? And has it affected them? Your mic's muted, by the way.
To be honest with you, I've always been a parent that's always informed my children on such subject matters anyway. And to be honest with you, my children, they face a lot of challenges at school because of their knowledge that they have, because they will often question everything thrown at them, whether it be history or whatever. They'll say, well, how is that possible? So-and-so couldn't have found that, because there was people there already. So, I mean, with my children, they know exactly what's going on. They're very clued up. They don't take no nonsense from anybody, to be honest. Even the 9-year-old, well, as you know, Amira, she's only 3.
The cat has just walked through my house. It's not my cat. Go on, sorry.
It is now. Yeah, so, I mean, my children, like I said, they've faced discrimination even at their school. I don't know if you saw a post of my daughter. She's now 20. She's 23 now. But part of my culture was that, we shaved the hair off, and she had a little ninty braid at the side with beads on it. Then they had their nose piercing and so on and so forth. And the teachers actually hounded her. They were very racist. They made some really terrible racist comments, so I had to pull her out of the school and put her in a different school. So my children are they're aware of racism, and they're aware of all of these subject matters. I don't hide it from them, and they do ask questions.
Even with regards to like your children's school environment, did you find that the racism went beyond just the classroom?
What you mean, like off school grounds?
Yeah, like with regards to the school and yourself, with the school, because one of the things that I find with doing the Black Child Agenda is that schools often use social services, the police, CAMs as a weapon towards parents if parents don't toe a line. And like you said, they were picking on your daughter. You've challenged them on that. What I find so much now is that the first thing is they'll call social services and make false accusations.
Oh, I've had that done so many times, Cheryl. It's ridiculous. To be honest with you, once you've got you're a black woman and you've got more than 3 children, you're already a target. Yeah, as far as they're concerned, you have too many children. Well, how do you cope? And if they don't see a man come into the school, they'll often question that, and they'll have their little conversations. Some of my children were quite athletic, so they used to run against other schools, and I'd see that they would always push their athleticism, and when it comes to academics, they weren't pushing them on that. And you know, there's many times where there's certain things that they would do, because they had a project at one time, and it was on, I think it was pirates, and they wanted my children to make skull and bones outfits and so on and so forth. And I said that I didn't want my children doing that. And so they were set upon by the teachers, and next thing you know, they called social services. And it's literally, I had to fight against that throughout the whole of my children's school, constantly. And with my son, he had special educational needs. When he started primary school, I told them of my concerns, and they didn't look at it. And then as time went along, it became more apparent that his problems were quite severe, and they wouldn't address it. Then eventually, because I kept on asking for him to be assessed and so on, they eventually did it. Then they said, yes, he's got special education needs. They gave him an assessment. They gave him a statement, and they said that at that time his learning was I think it was 8 years old, and he was about to leave school by then. So they denied him education for so long. And then when he did start high school, they still hadn't found him a place in a special education school. So he literally went through the whole school doing nothing. I put him in isolation just because they couldn't teach him properly. And what I did is I gave my son a pencil case full of everything he needed, which made it worse, because then he wouldn't start the lesson unless he went through the whole of the pencil case and made sure that everything was there. So it's like, he suffered. He's 25 now, and many of the times when I've tried to get the statement that was done and the things that were needed, they said they've lost it. So he hasn't been able to cope with life. A lot of the times he'll have jobs, but because he can't, like if he starts making his way out to his job and somebody stops him, he'll find himself somewhere else, in some next town somewhere else. And it's just gone on. And it's like the education system's failed him, social services now failed him, and he's just left to his own devices now. And he's quite vulnerable out there now. He's very vulnerable. So it's just, there's a lot of, I don't even know what more there is to do. I really don't know what else. I'm one of those parents, I don't know what else there really is to do.
Can I just say, much of the work, I've worked with mostly young people, so from key stage 4 to up to 25, that's been my area of interest. And what I found, once this legislation came in 4 years ago, there was an element of this, of the EHC plans that looked at preparation for adulthood. Now, with regards to your son, preparations objectives should have been put into the plans that would address some of the things that his needs in preparation for adulthood, so like financial independence and all that kind of thing. But what I see the processes what they tend to look at is getting it done. They actually don't look at neither the school nor the local authority look at the reality of how are we going to do this? How are we going to ensure that young people like your son actually make a contribution to society? And when you're sitting there in front of parents and you're trying to explain to the local authority that this child, if we don't do something with this child, he will be costing us 70,000 a year because he'll be in prison. But it's like no one's listening. And you're thinking to yourself, well, how is it that we can't have a system where he will have an education where he has a choice as to what he wants to do with his education? Now, in terms of your son's not going to work, within some parts of the country, they actually have a buddy system, an escort system that will take him to work. Will walk him to. They will escort him to
They
work.
have not told me of any of that.
Well, I'm telling you, it's supposed to be there. Yeah, the funding needs to be there to help him to get to work and to come back. Yeah.
Oh.
Because clearly he needs the support to be getting to work. And these are the things, it's not, when they have plans and they're preparing to go into adulthood, we need to be saying, especially our own people, this is the reality. This is, what do you want for your son? Do you want him to be just sit down, just so? No, we don't. We want them to make a contribution. We want them to have activities. We want them to go out to work. We want them to feel, you know, good about themselves and have programs. If they're not able to work, then there needs to be a social care package or a package that we can create within our community that will support these young people. That is what it's supposed to look like. So there's a section of young people that will go to work, and I expect young people with special educational needs to go to work. If that's what they want to do, they should be entitled to go to work, don't you think?
Yes.
And if they're not able to go to work, then let's look at a community package where there's activities that they can join in. And within our own community, we have the expertise to be able to create packages for those who cannot work, so that they can do the same things that maybe they were doing as young people. They can do volunteering, they can be creative, they can go to classes, they can have an escort that will take them up and down to do the things that they might want to do, go to the pictures, travel, all of that should be there. And this is built into the system already, but it's not happening.
It hasn't happened at all the whole time.
It's
failing after failing.
I hear that regularly.
I was going to say, do you guys think there is, you know, we live in wonderful England. Remember, they promised us that the streets paved with gold. That there's a problem with racism within the educational system. I don't know what shouted at me. Does anyone? Because you know what the thing is, I find is that there's a lot of discussion going on around education right now. Apparently, the DfE are now actually looking at education to include Black history prior to the slave trade and be more inclusive. I can see you, Ziggy. So, how do we feel about this with regards to this? Like, on one hand, they're not admitting that there's a problem with racism, and on the other hand, they're saying that they're changing the curriculum to meet the needs of particularly Black students. Go ahead, Ziggy.
I think, I'm not going to give a direct quote, but I think Malcolm X said, if you allow your enemy to educate your children, it's pretty much suicide. Nobody else. Every other community in this country, quote unquote immigrant community, comes here and establishes core institutions, school being one of them. I live in Tottenham, North London. Now you've got in the early 80s used to have actually quite a solid Greek community. Greek. Them man used to go to Greek school standard on a Saturday to learn their language. Now you've got Turkish. You've got the Turkish man have their own schools. Yeah. If you go up to Stamford Hill, where the bus garage is, you'll see the most immaculately kept, beautiful, outstanding building, which is a Jewish school, one of numerous ones in the vicinity. We cannot, and I appreciate there are some people who are pushing for, yes, decolonizing the curriculum, and I'm working with some heads of schools to look into what that looks like, and I will contribute towards it. However, we cannot depend on anybody to teach our children, and this is a myth that we have to remove it. And we're the only group of people that I've observed in this country who genuinely looks to other people to educate and empower our children. To me, is lunacy. Yeah, this shouldn't be a conversation. I don't even think it's a conversation that the DfE should be having. The fact that they're having it is almost an insult to us. It's a backhanded compliment, or what do they call it? Like shade. I think that's the more modern term. Yeah, it's lunacy. It's crazy. It actually upsets me that we have this conversation. That we genuinely, it's like we don't understand what the purpose of these schools are. I understood very quickly within, I think I got kicked out of my first school within 2.5 years. And what I mean as a teacher, not as a student, as a teacher. Because what I was on and what I was dealing with and the education that I was given, it became very clear, no, that's not what we want. I think I put a post on my Instagram the other day where I showed, this was in 2010, I showed the first half an hour of Hidden Colors to a group of children in year 8. They gave me a key stage 3 booster class, and then it was a mentoring group at a school in Tottenham. I'm gonna say, all right, boom. Within 2 weeks, yeah, I was on gardening leave. I never set foot back in that school ever again. And I'll never forget the look on the youth's face, yeah, where he said, there's something in there where they explain how martial arts has African origin, yeah? And the samurai and the ninja have African. And then you look to the screen and his eyes lit up.
Oh, you want to read that out?
And he was like, must have like,
Roland.
Save it for you.
Yeah. And the poor Roland.
Oh,
get to how he felt. Now, again, the two might not have correlated, but within 2 weeks, mind you, everything they put to me, every charge, was completely it was completely dropped. But it was very clear, we cannot have this man in this school. That was testament to me. They don't want your youths to learn certain things. They're not interested in these things. That the things that would allow our children to create a powerful community for us, it's not going to be developed and enriched in the school. So we can't look to the school. We can't. Saying the schools are racist and this, that, and the other, it's not that they're racist. They're just doing what they need to do for their children, which doesn't align with our children. So it's our duty to do what we need to do for our children. I don't see it as, I didn't take it personally. You was like, okay, all right, I was a bit confused. I get it now. So I just need to do what I need to do for our kids. Simple. Sorry if that was a bit. Oh, you're still on mute. You're on mute, Cheryl. We're not hearing you. You're on mute.
Hear me, Elliot. It's like, no, it's definitely, I agree with you. And it definitely makes sense. The education system has not been designed for us or our children. And the education system is working perfectly. Absolutely. And as it's supposed to work, as it's working. And our children are supposed to be churned out to work for someone. And that's it. It's a body of workers. And it's one thing as parents believing in the fact that, oh, by the time our children leave this education system, they're going to go and get a good job. No, they're not, in all cases. The majority may, or a lot will, but no. They're going to probably go, I have a sister who has a first and a law degree. She couldn't get past the bar. She tried, and unless you've got money, and each time you go to the bar, it's about £2,500. She, as a newly now indebted student, where do you find £2,500 every year to go and meet the bar? And children, young people that were in her university that barely got a 2 have passed the bar and gone into full-time work. So I definitely agree with what you're saying with regards to some of the things. I think we need to start raising entrepreneurs rather than people looking for just jobs. Unless you're a surgeon, unless you're a doctor, unless you're a lawyer, you know, I believe that there's a lot of skills that can be acquired, not necessarily in the education system.
Just very quickly, I went to a restaurant in Wood Green. I was told, oh, this is the place. I'm not really a kind of go out, eat kind of. Anyway, went there, and one waiter came over, and then he quickly disappeared, and another man came over. And I looked in his face. I looked at him. He looked at me. The same school that I was kicked out of, yeah, he was a former student. I remember him, Turkish guy. And I looked at him, and he's like, "Do you remember me?" I said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." Cut a long story short, he owned the restaurant. He owned the restaurant with a group of his friends. He was 24 years old. They were telling me that the businesses that they've done together. I remember those boys. They knew very clearly what they were going to be doing in 10 years' time, what they needed to do, because it was set by their community. It was a business thing. It was we own shops, we own businesses, we own so on and so forth, because they understood why they needed to do it for the betterment of their community. Maybe the next generation, they might have encouraged to go on and do the law because they could afford, they had the financial base to be able to push on the next generation to pay to go and do those things because they understand how the system works.
But I think, can I just,
Yes, go on, Marilyn.
can I just say that having done careers education, I'm really, really passionate about it. And I'm not just saying I'm passionate. Careers education starts from the day that a child enters in the world of education. Now, you know, like you go into school and they want to talk to you at 9 years old, in year 9, and they want you to now look at what you want to do. It's too late. You need, if we are going to do it, and I really do agree with you, Ziggy, we have to do it ourselves. We can't be saying to leaving our young people to those over there. We can't do it. We as parents, we have to support each other to support our children. And it's not just, oh, whilst they're in school, it's forever. Careers education is forever, because I used to say to young people, and I still say to them, what you are now is not what you're going to be in 5 years. What you are in 5 years, because there's a certain amount of fluidity. You realize maybe at 20 that you're actually quite articulate and you're a lot more confident, and then it might be that you want to go into public speaking, or you decide that one of the young people that I was dealing with recently, I've just been told he was trained to be an electrician, and now he's going to be a barber. He's left that. He's had enough, and he wants to do that now. So we need to give the young people and the children that we have within our community the confidence to decide that these are the things that I want to do. How do I achieve it? And to assist them with it. Some will need the money. And trust me, if someone can afford hair for £400, you know what? They need to get their money out. They need to get their money out for tuition or the 2.5 grand to make it necessary for them to be where they need to be. And if you're broke at the end of it, at least you know as a parent, you've been able to do it. I'm not saying that all parents have the money to do it, but you know what? If you can buy £400 worth of hair on a regular, or you can buy a Benz and be paying £500 a month for it, because we know it's happening in our community, then I think if you really are interested, I think you need to spend a little bit of money to get them to where they need to get to, because the bank's not going to give us the money. A lot of institutions don't value, they don't think that we've got business sense, and a lot of our young people do. So that's all I'm.
What's your thoughts on this one, Michelle, before we go to solutions? I muted your mic. Hold on, let me take you off mute.
I'm thinking on the same line as what the sister just said, really. I think we need to get our priorities in order and deal with what's important, the necessary rather than the unnecessary. And right now, education is everything because it's failing. I actually paid for my children to go and do their catering course at the university when I saw it being offered. And it was packed with a lot of European children. My children were like the only black children there, but that's the same thing what has carried my son through. because that is where he got his job. Even though he's got special educational needs, he actually secured a job at the Hilton Hotel doing chef work. So it's important, I think, you know, whether we was discussing earlier on, even to do it via, we can start saving with each other through running partners and pooling that money together to do what we need to do. So yeah, I agree with what the sister just said on that.
So you guys have kind of stolen a bit of my thunder, because what I was going to say was, what do we see are the solutions? Now, whether that's just in education, as you've mentioned, Michelle, with regards to resources and finance, what does that look like? And as I was saying to you earlier, Ziggy, with regards to, this is my little 2 pence, with regards to the homeschooling, many parents who work are like, I want to homeschool, but I have to go to work. But we do know that some of the workplaces are going to still allow parents to work from home. But if you can't, how do we now collectively support those parents? We keep talking about this village, and you create that village where you live. You don't need to look over there. You don't need to look to the government. So how do we see, number one, from education, number two, with regards to financial resources, and number three, this village that I just keep missing? Where I live, I'm grateful. I have that village. I can go to anyone's house on this road. My sons can go to anyone's house on anywhere around here, and they will be welcomed, and they'll be asked, "Are you hungry? How's your mum? How's your brother? Blah blah. Is there anything you need?" So I made sure I built my village from since my children were young. So what do we see as the solution? Go on, Ziggy. I'll start with you.
Very quickly, it would probably be three-pronged. One of the issues that was spoken about was our wastefulness with money and our need for material things, and that stems from being in a system that disenfranchises us and makes us feel inadequate, and our feelings of inadequacy force us to spend ridiculous amounts of money on things that we don't really need. And a lot of the time, and I always look at it from a systematic perspective, so one of the things that I always encourage, and it always stems back to, because of the system in which we live in, the hostile environment, we need to have, whether it be counseling, therapy, to begin to develop an element of self-love. Because unless we have an element of self-love, we're not going to do the things that are progressive for us. We're going to have self-destructive attitudes. And that's what we continue to see in our community, and why we go round and round and round in circles. Because we have a self-destructive relationship, because we're in a hostile environment. So that needs to be kind of commonplace, especially amongst males. A lot of men. Again, we live in a system where men are targeted. Coming back to George Floyd, it's not just America, it's here. And they go through a lot of things that nobody really talks about. So that kind of therapeutic element needs to be number one. Yeah. Once we're self-healed, we'll naturally come together, because I will look at you, you will look at me, and we naturally love each other. From an educational perspective, we need, and I'm going to go back to the work of Claude Anderson. How communities work is you need a financial base. You have to have a financial or an economy that funds everything else within that community. Now, it's brilliant that you've got things like, is it Black Pound Day, like only buy black, and so on and so forth. But hopefully that's not just what they call a wave or a trend. That's something that we can utilize to create establishments. And it's from those establishments that we'll be able to solve all of the other issues that we have. The reasons why other communities don't have issues with employment, and it's because they have businesses where they can employ their own. You get me? You don't need GCSEs if your uncle hires you. You don't need these things if your cousin owns this business. So those things are the things that are going to fund the schools. They're going to fund the home schools and so on and so forth. So I know it sounds maybe a bit wishy-washy, but it doesn't matter what we put in place. And I know it seems like I might even be working against myself. Yeah. But I know I've seen it where I've had parents who I've let off. I'm owed thousands of pounds in fees. I'm owed thousands of pounds in fees. And I know the reason, and I'm going to bring it back to this, why somebody choose to go out on a Saturday rather than pay my fees is simply because of self-love. They what your priorities are completely different. So yeah, that's where I'm going to leave it.
Michelle, I saw you had your hand
Yeah,
up.
I was just going to say as well that as far as I'm concerned, money's not an issue in our community, because I was raised in an organisation, so-called conscious organisation, for many years from a very young age, and I only left that about maybe 7 years ago. And there'd be many times we'd be called to raise £30,000 in a short space of maybe a week or two, and we would always hit that target. So it's not, that was not the issue. What the issue in our community is lack of trust. And we have a lot of organizations out there that have created so much chaos and dysfunction that our community doesn't really have that trust. It's like a lot of the time they're willing to spend the money, but there's so much ego, so much mistrust amongst those in our community that people just become tired of it now. They don't trust. And that's an issue we need to deal with. And there's no accountability. There's no accountability. There's no responsibility. We don't call our people to accountability. And it just keeps on coming up all the time, constantly. So those are the issues I feel that definitely need to be addressed, because a lot of our people see the wrongs going on by so-called leaders, and they turn a blind eye to it, and all it's doing is damaging our community. And this is why we can't pull the funds that is needed to pull. Because even with Imari's death, when he died, look how much money was raised in such a short space of time. It can be done. It's just a matter of who's respected, who people trust. That's the issue.
What do you think a solution is, Michelle?
I think we have to address these issues with all of our leaders within our community. We have to, because I've tried to do that so many times. I've spoken out about it many times. I've been ridiculed for it. I've been targeted for it, and it still goes on. And there's a lot of leaders within our community that are abusing our children. They're taking our money. They're running away with our money. They're encouraging the youth to sell drugs, and then they're sitting there, black power, you know, trying to pretend that they're doing everything for the community when they're not. And a lot of people are aware of it. When you bring it to them, a lot of the time they're willing to dismiss it because it doesn't affect them until the same thing happens to them. And then there's this hush, hush, hush sort of thing. Everything's swept under the carpet, and it's very damaging. Very, very damaging.
Marilyn, what's your take on things? What do you see as there being a solution to some of the issues? Oh, but you're on mute.
You know, all of the things that, you know, the sis said and Ziggy said, I you know,
Okay.
I second that. The counselling for all of us is really needed, and there are a lot of male, you know, the barber shops and all the places that have been taken away from black men so that they can talk and be together. We need to have more of those spaces where constructive conversations can happen without us women about. Now, the issues with women as us as black women, when I hear that there's sisterhood, well, I just laugh, because I know that that's not true. It's a lie. And we need to start talking about that as well, because, you know, people say that there's sisterhood, and I know that there damn well isn't. Do you know what I mean? So we need to be dealing with that. And all of the things that the sister was saying about people all the predators in our community, people overlooking, and I don't know why they overlook it, but they're overlooking it. How can we progress when we've got this venom in our community? You have an idea, and people will deliberately not let it happen because their ego, it's hurting their ego. And so they'd rather it not happen. They'd rather everybody suffer before it happens, rather than it happen and they don't get the credit for it, you know? So those are the things that I think we need to address. But we also need to be a lot more supportive with each other in terms of getting there. It's like crabs in a pen. Oh, you can't be there. Oh, you're not going to be this before me. It's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. And we're very, very talented people. I don't talk in meetings anymore because you're not getting no person is getting my ideas in any local authority to take it and then they're walking up and down with it. No, it's not happening. So I quite happily sit there now, rather than say anything. I'd rather share it directly with a young person now and say, this is what we need. You take a selection of young people and you nurture them, you let them ring you, and that's what I think we should be doing, is having conversation with the young people. You know, if they want to buy a house, someone needs to tell them how to do it. You tell them how to get into a partner, and they must keep to their obligation and the agreements of the partner. How the hell are they supposed to get on if we don't tell them? You can't, we don't encourage them to become unions. Oh, left the man, he's no good. What are you talking about? You've got 3 children for him. And people are actively encouraging young people to leave the dirty boy, he's no good. What are you talking about? He's trying, they're trying. They're young people. We need to be nurturing young people in every part of their life. I know tiring, but we need to really encourage them a lot more.
I agree with you. I agree with everything that all of you have said. And just to round up now, just so you know, funny enough, over the last week or two, when I've been banned on Cheryl Phoenix, as usual, and I'm now banned on my other one. No, that's back up and running, actually. I know, always. There's nothing I can do. However, what we have done is started a Black Pound Coalition. And what that is basically a savings club, where what I've said, you put £1, that's all, £1 a week you put down. And so I posted it on, I've got a group on Facebook called the Black Business Agenda. There's like 11,500 people in there. So I did the maths, and over 4 weeks, if every one of those people put in £1, would have been £47,000 in 4 weeks. In 12 months, it would have been, I think it was like 570,000 something. Could you imagine how many schools, businesses, houses, and things we could actually buy with that? So we've got a little Telegram group going at the moment where we're actually formulating what we're going to do with this money once we're officially up and running. We're only opening a bank account with a Black African bank based in the UK, because there are a lot of them. There's no point us talking about Black economics if we're now opening our account with white organisations. We need to keep it to ourselves. So you're going to start seeing some of that. So that's one thing that's happening that anyone is free to get involved in. And, you know, with regards to spending, as most of you will know, I used to run a Black business directory back in the day called Blackman. We had 25 staff members, all on a salary of no less than £30,000. So with regards to knowing that it can be done, it can be done. We had hotspots up and down from Leeds right down to London. We had our own design team, we had our own PAs and secretaries, sales team, you name it, it was there, based on the concept of Black business. So the businesses are already there. The thing people seem to feel that we don't have businesses, we've got everything from, you've got your usual restaurants, takeaways, hair salons, dentists, Black owned, hotels right here in the UK that are Black owned, you know, accountancy services, architects, A to Z of anything you can think of, we actually have in our community. The only reason why we stopped producing it was because Black people weren't supporting their own businesses. And that's the message I think has now got through. I think we were about 20 years before our time. I do think that message has now got through. I just hope that that message stays there with regards to our children and the education system, because we're not teaching them from down here whilst they're tiny. By the time they get to adults, it's like relearning, unlearning what they've already learned. So you know, I appreciate all of you for getting involved today and talking your truth and being 100% honest. And let's see what we can do as a collective. The more we speak, the more ideas we share, and the more that we will be able to do and actually take action. Someone seeing this video might say, oh, I like what More Education said, I'm going to go and do that. Or I like what Marilyn said, I'm going to go and take that piece of that idea and make it blossom. Because one thing we do know, we can't do everything. So if we get a collective of people trying to do different little bits as one, we have the village. We have, like what Ziggy said, with regards to our own education systems, our own schools and shops and this and that and the other, right on our own doorstep, so we don't have to worry about family. Any last words? Everyone's on mute besides me and Marilyn, so me and Marilyn can sit here talking.
Brother that does the education online.
That's Ziggy.
How does that work? Yeah, Brother Ziggy, how does that work? What is there not a fee or something?
Yeah, we charge a monthly subscription. We do maths and English 2 hours per week. That works out to about, over the course of a month, like, I don't know, about £8-9 an hour per lesson. We've got a class of about 12 to 15 students. We do it similar, like literally how we do it now. We upload resources online. We also have a financial intelligence class once a week and a world and African history class every other week. That's free of charge, so that's included in the package. More information, just pop me an email at info@moreeducation.co.uk. Yeah, follow me on Instagram. I'm getting used to it now. I'm slowly getting into the file. I wasn't a Cheryl Phoenix at the whole kind of. No, I'm not gonna lie. I watched for a bit, but getting there slowly in regards to posting and content and doing YouTube videos. I did one. I think someone mentioned early on about the police. I did one about the police in schools. I'm at the stage now where I can be unapologetic. I don't care. You with me? Worst case scenario.
Only place to be.
Worst case scenario, they're just gonna have to send me to Jamaica. You know what I mean? That's
I'm
the
sure
plan.
that'll be so difficult for you.
Yeah, we're getting so much trouble that they're just gonna have to send me to Jamaica. So yeah, that's the plan, to just kick up so much trouble. But like Marlene said, the youth, all of the people I employ are former students. My PA admin assistant, former student, she's 20. The person who does my YouTube videos and edits and this, that, and the other, he's going to uni to do the same thing. They will get paid. And that shows over and above what you would have got paid. I called him, I said, what would you get paid at your job? All right, you get paid £8 an hour, I'm going to pay you £11.50. Do this. You with me? So I've got certain ones of them. Set up your own company so I can pay you through your limited company. So do this. Do you want to go payroll or do you want to do this? Right. And these are the conversations that we need to be having. But just the last thing I wanted to leave on and say was, I just hope to anybody watching, or all of us, that the kind of new level of consciousness, I know kind of maybe in the room it's not, but a new level of consciousness is continued, even if it is just consciously thinking before you buy, before you get the window cleaner. Think, is there a black guy in my area who I can have as my window cleaner? That's the key thing. That's all. I will just make sure we continue this, because it will make a huge difference in 10, 15 years time when we have established businesses and we don't have to go and ask people for employment or for validation.
Absolutely. Any other parting words? Any final words, Marilyn? I can hear some in the background.
In terms of the SEN, I can hear quite a lot of background stuff.
Yeah, no, I've just muted the mic.
In terms of the SEN world, I'm done. I'm done working for the local authority. There's so many young people that need support from the outside, and I think the work that I would like to develop now in the SEN world is trying to persuade parents to think differently. you know, if you've got an autistic boy, if you've got an ADHD child, do they have to be, I'd have to ask the question, do they have to be in a mainstream environment? How would they fare? Would they, if they had a different type of package, one mixed with mentoring, one mixed with online tuition, one where they be involved in a lot of physical activity? Because I just think the curriculum for a lot of our boys is just too feminine. Who wants to sit down all day? Who wants to?
Exactly.
After about 45 minutes, I'm done myself. So I've always felt that this curriculum is far too feminine. You know, sit down over there and there's a white woman at the front. And if you don't do what she wants you to do, then you're in problems. But maybe if they could be out there in the fresh air, doing things that they would like, and how we can relate their learning to the maths, English and science that Ziggy is offering, I think they would still arrive at the same destination at the end of it. And educating their parents as well to say that, why can't you pay £9 an hour? You're driving a Lexus. Why can't you pay? Do you know what I mean? You spent 400 quid on, I'm sorry to keep on going on about the wigs, but you spent £400 on a weave. And you can't pay the man his money. Do you know what I mean? And we need to be asking the parents. We've got to laugh about it, but we've got to call parents out. If we're going to be calling educators out, we need to be calling parents out as well. You know, you've got a 6-bedroom house. You could have got 5 and spent 20 grand on them. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah.
It's that parental responsibility. Where does it begin and end? And like you're saying, I have come into contact with very few, but enough parents who, oh, but the school didn't. Oh, but the school did. Oh, but and the question I have to end up asking is, well, what have you done? What are you doing? Because it's everybody else's issue and fault why your child is not doing what they're supposed to do, but it's the school's fault, it's you. But where does your parental responsibility begin and end? So yeah, I hear that and I definitely agree. But like I said, I've only had a few of those types. The majority I have found have been very, very, on it. If their child is in the wrong, they can't be wrong and strong. But then parents of SEN, one thing I have found, as with my brother and sister-in-law, is that you as a parent, you give birth to this child and it's all beautiful and it's all lovely. And you have so many dreams and visions about what your child's going to do. And then you're told your child is not like everybody else's. They never will be. They're going to be different, etc., etc. So then after that, it becomes like white noise, because you're stuck now. Like, well, what do you mean? I've had all these dreams and these dreams are shattered, and now you have to start again with learning and understanding what this actually means for you and your family. And one of the biggest fears I hear from parents that have children with special additional needs is that, what's going to happen when I die? Are they going to be able to cope in society? Am I doing enough?
She's gone, isn't it?
Oh,
she's gone, hasn't she?
Yeah, she chipped out.
Cheryl, you're frozen. Or maybe no. Yeah, she's frozen.
Mm.
Might have
Oh
to wait
dear.
for her. Has anybody got a number and give her a call?
Yeah, I have.
I can pop her a text.
1 minute.
Yeah, she'll log back in.
Cheryl's still gone.
She responded.
Oh. I'll tell you one thing with this lockdown. Before the lockdown, I remember when Cheryl, myself, and quite a few others used to be like encouraging people to homeschool. And a lot of the parents are like, oh no, I can't manage, I can't cope, I can't do that. But now that lockdown's come, they said they're not sending their children back nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Children don't even want to go back to school either. And the parents are saying that they would rather work from home and teach their children from home, because the children have actually learnt more than any school could teach them in that short space of time.
It's been a wonderful opportunity to be able to have that space to realise, really, hasn't it? And I think that's great. And the resources that are coming from the Home Network group, I just thought, God, if I had all of those resources all of those years ago, I think I would have made some very different choices. And just, you know, it's having the confidence to homeschool, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, that's a massive issue. And I think that now a lot of parents, unfortunately, have been thrust into the situation. You know, like when they're dumping at the deep end and you have to learn to swim. And I think a lot of parents have realised, right, I can't swim still enough. So,
Exactly.
yeah. So
I've heard some parents say they didn't even know their children prior to lockdown.
yeah,
They
man.
actually came and said they did not know their children and prior to lockdown, and they have learnt so much about their children now.
Yeah.
And the skills that their children have, it's actually been, there's been times I've had to cry just from some of the emotional things that people have said. I mean, myself, a friend of mine's got an allotment, and I take a lot of the children over there. They'd never even think of going there in allotment. They only want to sit on a computer all day long, and they love it.
Yeah.
They love it. They want to grow everything. They like to water the plants. They just love to touch the earth and be. They feel free, so calm. It's a beautiful thing to see, man. It really is.
Ladies, I'm going to have to leave you because I was supposed to do dinner. And I know if it's not done by the time my son started it. But
what are you cooking?
Some sea bass. I'm
Wow.
gonna quickly do some sea bass with mushrooms, and if it's not done in 15 minutes for the one evening that I'm supposed to cook, I'm gonna be in a lot of trouble. So please,
thank you so much.
Everybody.
Thank you both.
Yes, thank you. Yeah,
thank
made
you
me think
very
about
much.
a lot of things. Have a lovely
All
evening.
right then. Have a
Take
blessed
care.
evening.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So it looks like just the two of us left, isn't
it? I wanted you to laugh when you said you've come out of the local authority. There's a lot of people that I know that have done that. A lot of friends of mine that worked with social services, the education system, all of them are left. Every one of them are leaving.
Because you're not getting anywhere. There's all the microaggression that comes with the work that you have to do. And you just think, well, what's the point? If I don't, I'm gonna end up being really ill, or you're anxious, you're this, you're that. You can't keep up with the workload, and the clients, you're literally on burnout. So the clients are not getting the best of you. And for Black clients, it's even worse. You're not even allowed. I think she's coming back. You're not even.
Yeah, that's Cheryl. Well, the brother had to run and go cook, Cheryl. You're on mute.